We need to find the values of all 6 trigonometric functions given specific things. So the first problem that we're given is the cosine of theta equals 4/5, and the sine of theta is less than 0. Well, less than 0 means it is negative. So we're going to start by using the acronym. All students take calculus. And what this means is that all functions are positive in quadrant 1. Only sine and its reciprocal are positive in quadrant 2. Only tangent and its reciprocal is positive in quadrant 3. And only cosine and its reciprocal are positive in quadrant 4. So here's how I like to figure out what quadrant I'm in. I'm going to start with this first piece right here. Cosine of theta is 4/5. 4/5 is a positive number. So it's positive all in quadrant 1. If only sine is positive, that means cosine is not. If only tangent's positive in quadrant 3, that means cosine is not. So now I've eliminated 2 of my quadrants. The next piece I have to do is figure out, well, if sine is negative and everything is positive in quadrant 1, then I'm not in quadrant 1. So my triangle has to be created in quadrant 4. I'm going to start at the origin, go back to the x-axis. We're always going to draw to the x-axis, and theta is closest to the origin. Now let's plot what we know. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So the adjacent length is 4, the hypotenuse is 5. Now I need to find the missing piece, and I'm going to do that by the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Well, the a value is 4. I don't know the b value, that's what I'm trying to find, and the hypotenuse is 5. So 16 plus b squared equals 25. When I subtract the 16 to the other side, I get b squared equals 9. And when you take the square root of both, I get b equals plus or minus 3. So now I need to determine, is my b length positive or is my b length negative? Well, since from here I'm going down, the b length is negative. So from here I can find my trig functions. My sine of theta is opposite over hypotenuse. My cosine of theta is adjacent over hypotenuse. And my tangent of theta is opposite over adjacent. And if you ever forget this, go back to your acronyms. SOHCAHTOA. So, ka, to, a. Last piece here to complete the 6 functions. Every function has a reciprocal function. The reciprocal of sine is cosecant. So the reciprocal of negative 3/5 is negative 5/3. The reciprocal of cosine is secant of theta. The reciprocal of 4/5 is 5/4. The reciprocal of tangent is cotangent of theta, and the reciprocal of negative 3/4 is negative 4/3. I have now found all 6 trig functions. We're going to do the same process one more time, but we're going to bump it up a notch. The first thing I like to label is all students take calculus. Remember, these where the trig functions are positive. I personally prefer to work with sine, cosine, and tangent. Remember, every function has a reciprocal. So here's what I'm going to label right now. If cosecant of theta is 4/1, the reciprocal of cosecant theta is sine theta. Therefore, the reciprocal of 4 is 1/4. Cotangent has a reciprocal, which means tangent of theta is also less than 0. And less than 0 means negative. So let's start with this first piece right here. The sine of theta is 1/4. 1/4 is a positive number. So sine can be positive here, sine is positive there, which means it's not positive where tangent's positive, and it's not positive where cosine's positive. If tangent has to be less than 0, tangent has to be negative. Well, if all is positive in quadrant 1, tangent can't be negative. So let's draw a triangle in quadrant 2. Start at the origin, go out, bring it back down to the x-axis, and the theta is closest to the origin. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So the opposite is 1, the hypotenuse is 4. So to complete this triangle, we need to do the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared, which is the hypotenuse. So I have 1 plus b squared equals 16. I will subtract 1 from both sides, so b squared equals 15. Take the square root of both, so b equals plus and minus the square root of 15. Well, since in the x direction I'm going negative, this is going to be negative rad 15. Now I can find all the trig functions. The sine of theta is the opposite over the hypotenuse. The cosine of theta is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. And the tangent of theta is the opposite over the adjacent. Well, every function has a cofunction. So now I'm going to find the cofunction. The cofunction is the reciprocal function. So the reciprocal of sine is cosecant theta. Therefore, I flip 1/4 or take the reciprocal, which is 4 over 1, or 4. The reciprocal of cosine is secant theta. The reciprocal of negative rad 15 over 4 is negative 4 over rad 15. The reciprocal of tangent is cotangent of theta. So the reciprocal of 1 over rad 15 is negative rad 15 over 1, or just negative rad 15. I now have all 6 trigonometric functions.